Welcome to UnstuckAF, a podcast here to help you do you better. There's a path that starts where you are, passes through who you are, and leads where you want to go. We're here to hear from people who've walked that path or who are walking it right now. This is Orlando Bishop, Coach Orlando, and I thank you for listening as we learn how to get unstuck, how to be unstuck, how to live unstuck. Unstuck as fuck. Welcome to UnstuckAF, and I am just over the moon. We got ourselves a get. We got ourselves a published author, and yes, a friend of a friend, and we might touch on that. But when I heard about Grissel Seijo's essay, I was immediately interested, and you'll know why in just a minute. And then I had the privilege to actually take in her words, and they are fantastic. So we're gonna tell you where you can find them, and that'll be in the show notes. So that too. But Grissel, I just wanted to give you a chance to say hi to folks.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on, Bishop. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thanks for being here. So, we generally, we start out with a basic question. Mm-hmm. And that question is, how and or when did you know that managing grief was going to become a big part of your life?
When my grandmother died. So my freshman year of college, my grandmother died. I was supposed to go to see her that summer because she had been getting sick. She was in Puerto Rico. And the call comes in. My mother was beside herself. I've never seen my mother in such grief. And going home and watching my aunts and feeling this sense of disconnection and otherness. And then standing outside of my grandma's house. And one of my aunts said, pick something of hers, something about her, and make it part of your life. My grandmother woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning and put Radio Wado, which was like the 10-10 winds of Puerto Rico.
Nice.
Really loud. I'm like, why are you waking up the whole neighborhood? And she didn't have a hearing problem. It wasn't like she had a hearing problem. This is my space, and I'm gonna jack it up for everybody. So it was at that moment that my relationship with grief became solidified.
Gotcha. And it's as you say that piece about seeing your mom. I distinctly remember my dad was about 20 at that point, and my uncle died, and it wasn't even seeing my father cry. I just never seen him that knocked down, as a person. You know what I mean?
Like there's a hole that's created.
And I felt like I could see it, and I just tried to be around him, and I would check on him and stuff. And it was my uncle. I was hit too, but not. That was his brother. You know what I mean?
It was a sibling, right?
Yeah, and there's something very. Even at 20, which I knew my dad was a human. Even at 20, it was like, wow, this grief thing must be huge. I'm wondering, as you talk about that, you saw your aunt, your mom, did you take anything from the way they managed it? Positive, negative, neither, both, culturally? Just was there anything about the way they actually dealt with it?
So, I'm a Puerto Rican born and raised in the South Bronx. Mm-hmm. And Puerto Rican culture is all about familia, right? The family unit, how we love as a unit, how we dislike as a unit, how we hate as a unit, right? And my family handled grief in a different sort of way. So we did an all-night vigil. We were kind of old school. We still are old school when we watched, when we did my mom's vigil, it was all night as well. So we did an all-night vigil, and all night long we just told jokes the things that she did that made us laugh, the things that abuela did that made us just like pause, you know, like, because she was older, right? And older people do things that are of their age. And sometimes she would do things and we're like, oh my God, like, remember when? So we spend the night, remember when. And for some people, that's hard, right? That's not how you should grieve. But for my family, we chose to grieve in love and in celebration, understanding that it was one moment when we shared a circle, right? So what I learned about managing grief was you soulfully and only are experiencing your grief, but collectively you are pushing love. So it was that kind of idea, right? That it's like, and I say that because at the time someone was like, you guys spent all night laughing about her? And I was like, yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
we did.
Yeah.
Right? We send her off laughing about like getting up at 5 o'clock and putting Radio Guado, and none of the neighbors were like, because she had been there, living there, like my grandmother was like 83, she had lived there maybe 65 years. No one's going to tell Doña Inés that she needed to turn down that radio. Nobody.
I love it. And she knew it too, huh?
Yeah, of course. The children that have been raised in that neighborhood, like, they knew at 5 o'clock, it's either the rooster or Doña Inés's radio, right? Like
one
that
way or
kind
the
of
other.
thing.
That's funny. I love that.
Yeah.
So obviously your essay is about a different loss. And as we turn to that, I was definitely impacted by that moment, that finding out moment, and anyone who's had that moment. Sometimes the unsaid version is actually, and it's way more devastating. I could see, that moment that it hangs in the air, right? When someone says, hey, I got news or whatever it is, and maybe you've been braced for it, right? And I guess as you take yourself back there, or as you look back there, what do you make of that moment now, right? As you think about that sort of that silence that told you everything you needed to know.
So let me just kind of give context for your listeners. When my mom was sick, when my mom had cancer, I was on a flight from Miami. At the time I was living in Miami. I was on a 2:00 flight from Miami to Puerto Rico. I called my house to say I was on my way. She was alive. She was alive. I landed and she had died. And I walk out into the pickup area at the airport. And there was no one there. And my family was always there. And there was like an indescribable silence. I had my daughter with me at the time. She would have been, it was 15, 16 months. I honestly can't remember at this moment.
Wow.
But the oppression of the heat and the silence, like I knew something was off.
Right.
The minute I walk out and don't see my family member, one of my cousins is supposed to pick me up. But I thought off. I thought, oh, they took her to the hospital, right? In the Puerto Rico airport, there's levels. There's like when you first walk in, that's where the buses are. The second, section is where the cabs can pick you up, and the third section is where your family can pick you up. And I crossed over to the first, the one where your family is, and I called them, right? And my cousin picks up and says, oh, mamita, Manny couldn't make it because he had something come up at work. Don't worry, we'll call you back. And hangs up on me. I was like,
huh?
So I call, and my aunt picks up. And, I say, la bendición. I recognize her voice, like, la bendición. Titi, mi mamá murió, right? Like, did my aunt die? My Titi, aunt,
died,
did my mom die?
Yeah.
And there's a silence. And I said, just tell me, when did she die? Did she die? And she says, Mama, she did. And I don't remember hanging up the phone. I don't remember anything but feeling something pierce my soul. Right? I'm the type of person that I talk to my mother every day. It took 8 minutes from leaving my apartment in Inwood to getting to the train station. So I lived in Inwood for a decade. It took every day 8 minutes just to walk from my house to the train station. Right. When I moved to Miami, it took 16 minutes to get to my daughter's school.
Wow.
16 from the time I got into the car to, like, it was so that my daughter would say, hi, Mama. That's you know, as one of her first words. And it just pierced me. There's no other, I can't even explain it. And it's an otherness that happens. It's almost like a out of body experience. And I must have been crying because I remember somebody saying to me, you know, I looked over and the gentleman was like, are you okay? And just reaching for my daughter and screaming no, because she was about to run. And then it was just like this weird silence. This silence with all this movement. But the hole in my soul was there. Yeah,
that's a powerful way of describing that. There's something I've noticed, and I'm curious if this was part of your experience of that silence. I specifically remember when my dad died, that the next morning, you know, I'm not doing great. And I go outside, I'm in LA at this point, and I go outside and life is just, you know, happening. I remember thinking, like, how are you all, like, didn't you hear? My father died. I mean, like, it was just so unthinkable that life was going to go on and the world was going to keep doing what it does.
Yeah.
That's
because that was a moment for you and the world goes on. Right. You know, I try to, when I talk to people about grief, I try to say, for those of us who are Northeasterners, you know, when there's like a huge snowstorm and the world turns quiet, but inside your house it's moving. It's that, right? And for when I lived in Miami, it's like, do you know the day after the hurricane, when you walk out and there's dead silence? It's that, right? It's a moment where you find yourself encased, and you realize everyone else is moving, right? The world keeps going.
Right.
But to your point, it's like, did you hear the news?
I mean, it's unthinkable.
Yeah.
What's everybody doing?
Do you know that the world stopped yesterday at 2:00? You know, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. You described the night with, you know, Abuela has died and you're, you know, and you're there and it's family and it hurts, but you laugh and you vigil. Okay. And that is how you went through that process. But you share that it didn't go quite the same way in terms of mourning your mom. And I'm wondering, was it the same at first? I mean, it was like, like how did that experience unfold?
No, because when my mom passed, I became my mom. 20 years earlier when I watched her grieve her mother. Right? I loved Abuela, but I didn't speak to Abuela every day.
Yeah.
Right? And here's the thing, and I've talked to a lot of people about this as well. My mother passed literally a year and a half after my father. The minute my mother passes, my sister says to me, we're orphans. You know, like, I don't know if you've had this experience. I know a lot of people do. As long as a parent is living, all hell could break loose.
Right.
Because my job, I'm never going to be homeless.
Yeah.
I can, you know, break up with a boyfriend. I'm going to have food. I can I don't know, walk away from whatever,
Yeah.
because there was a base or a net. Like I was a trapeze artist, and there was always a net. Once she passes, there is no net. There is no one I can call and say my deepest, darkest secrets to. And I have aunts, so I don't want to make it sound like they weren't available.
It's a different relationship. Yeah.
And I was angry, right? I went through the anger phase where people would tell me, I can't replace her. And the minute they said that phrase, I was like, in my head, I was like, yeah, you cannot. So let's just stop this conversation right now. Right?
Oh, wow.
So I mourned her soulfully because I was mourning the one person who loved me completely unconditionally. Right?
Yeah.
The one person who I knew that if something went wrong, I called her, right? So I tell people sometimes when we talk about it. In fact, one of my friends, Maya, lost her mom maybe 3 or 4 years after I lost mine. And I sat vigil with her. And 3 months after that, I get a text from her, and she said, I never understood what you meant. And I'm so sorry, right? Because it is this, it's your support, it's your baseline. And what I tell your listeners is like, think of the one person you want to call when stuff goes right. And then think of the person you want to call when stuff goes wrong. And for me, that was my mom.
Same
right?
person, yeah.
Yeah, for me, celebrating wins was great, but we all do stupid things in our lives. And if I felt shame or blame or sadness or messed up on a test or I don't know, insert bad thing here, I would call her. And my mom was smart enough to be like, what you did was really stupid. That was real stupid. Okay, whatever. Right? And I remember calling my mom one time, like being in college, and like I just wanted out because I felt overwhelmed. And she like, okay, fuck it, come home. I was like, what? She like, just quit, come home. It's okay. And obviously I didn't, right?
Right.
But just the ability the freedom to say, I'm not trapped. This is a choice.
Right.
I'm not trapped in this college dorm. It's a choice for me to stay here. That left the minute she took her last breath. My freedom, my sense of all-out courage, my sense that I could always say, oh, fuck it, I go home, left. It evaporated. Right? Her soul left her body, and that left me.
Yeah. That's such an incredible, that's a very moving description. And and I don't know if you had the experience of like actually picking up the phone. I thought that was like a cruelest of ironies after my mom died, that like literally the one person in the world who could have helped me deal with that tremendous of a loss was the loss. Like, hey, wait a minute, this, and it is just but you describe it really powerfully. I guess as you think about that now, where do you find your courage now? I mean, if the courage to write, the courage to practice law, you're living your life, I guess, where does that come from for you now?
So initially it came from my daughter, right? The fact that I wanted to see her thrive. And then it came really, I got an executive coach because my career was stagnant, right? And executive coaches sometimes do counseling. And one of the things she said was like, what are you punishing yourself for? And I will tell you, this was the punishment. The Saturday before my mother passed, my sister calls me and says, you need to come, little one, you need to come home. I'm little one. They call me little one because I'm the youngest and the shortest, and little one, you need to come home. And I said, are you sure? Are you sure? Because I had just started a new job like 3 months before that. And I was like, no, I was just there last week, Eve. Like I had worked out a schedule where I could be in Puerto Rico Thursday through Monday.
Okay.
And be at work Tuesday, Wednesday. Because my boss was phenomenal. One of my bosses at the time, Emilio Infante, had lost his father. So he was very, very good about it. And I had been with mommy a full week and a half. And they had let me like skip a week, right? In essence, like skip today, Tuesday, and just go ahead and stay because the holidays were coming. My mom passed on November 8th. So like skip it. I'm a trial attorney. We had depositions coming up. So I was like, are you absolutely sure?
Right.
And she said, yes. I said, okay. I went into work on Tuesday and I asked permission. I went into work on Monday and I was like, look, I'm really sorry. My sister called. But I said at the start of the hour, I left Miami. She was alive. Never, ever could I have imagined that while I was on that plane, she would pass. And what I proceeded to punish myself about was, I knew on Saturday. What the hell was I thinking? Couldn't I call my boss on Sunday? I was thinking.
Yeah.
Why wasn't I there? Because why? Because of a job? Because I was loyal to somebody who I didn't really know, so I turned my back on the woman who had been loyal to me for 39 years. Right? All of those things. And I understand my mother would never want me to live this way.
Sure.
But it was feeling like I let her down.
Yeah.
Right?
And I would imagine there's so many levels to what you just described, but I would imagine that it was particularly challenging, let's use that word, to feel you let down the person who you went to with your wins and the person who, right? I mean, I would imagine that was not, like on top of it, like for that to be the feeling then must have been something.
I realize now that part of it was because I needed to deny she was dying. Right? I needed to, when my sister said she's not doing well, be like, well, you don't know. She's already bounced back because she had bounced back before. Right? She had like many cancers. She had good days and bad days. So I was like, it's okay, she got it. I'm getting there. Right? I'm getting there.
I mean, to have been in flight, I'm sure there's so many what ifs. What if I took this flight? What if I did? I'm sure there was that piece, and I understand that for sure. I guess, was there any further communication around that, whether with your sister or other family members? Did you express any of that? Did you kind of hold that for yourself? Just this feeling that you felt like you had let your mother down?
I did not speak it until nearly 8 years after.
Whoa, really?
Because I felt shame.
Yeah.
I felt incredible shame.
Wow.
Incredible shame. Because I made decisions that now I could understand.
Sure.
Right. But at the time, I was like, just so shamed. So I tell people often, there is nobody in this world that can bully me the way I bully myself. I am an expert at holding myself accountable to standards that normal people wouldn't. So no, I didn't speak to them about that. Right?
Yeah. It's funny as you say that piece about the bullying, because I was going to ask you, if a friend of you, if right now I told you a story. Last week, I went home. I came back to take care of a few things. And within 48 hours, it sounds like it was about, from getting a call, I was on another plane home. I cannot believe that you would be like, well, there's a guy who does not care about his mother.
Yeah.
You never say, I mean, I can't imagine, right? I can't imagine.
But that's the thing. You hold yourself to like these incredible standards. And I have been going home, part of it, look, in full transparency, part of it was like, I made the decision because I had this new job. I was afraid, to do a bad job. I made the decision because I had been flying back and forth for months, and fiscally, it was, financially, it was getting hard.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't fathom that, because I had seen her the week before, because we had talked the week before, right? Because of all these things. But to your point, logic and emotion don't always coincide.
To be
people
sure.
They can.
Right. But to be sure. Now, it may have slipped past the audience, so I'm gonna draw their attention back to something you said a moment ago. You said 8 years. You didn't say 8 days, you didn't say weeks, but you said 8 years. And that was definitely a piece of your story that just, 8 years. My own mom, we just, one thing we shared was we used to read a lot of biographies. She'd, check this one out. And she would always remind me, because you may have guessed I could be a pretty ambitious guy. I was going to do this, I'm going to do that. And she said, when you read somebody's autobiography and there's a period and the next sentence starts 5 years later, it just took you 5 seconds to read that. They had to live those 5 years. Don't miss those 5 years just because, right? And so when you say 8 years later, wow. What can you tell us about whether it's the 8 years in totality or sort of how that unfolded? I mean, that seems like quite a journey.
A long time holding myself accountable.
Yeah, that's a long time to beat anybody up.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Maya Angelou. I know how the Cage Bird sings. Talks about how she became mute because she spoke about who hurt her and her allegedly her family, because they never
exactly. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. Right.
This person was found dead. Crazy as it is, because I was 39 when mom passed away. My inability to make it home contributed to her death. Not the cancer that she had been suffering from.
Right.
Not the... Right. I had failed her. Right? And the 8 years, I lived like in a bubble. I lived in a bubble. I interacted with people genuinely, but they didn't know who or what I was. And the thing is, because my daytime job is I'm an attorney, so I can hide, and people just think that's who she is, right? So I left the job, that where people knew me, because it was not a place I wanted to be, because what I wanted to was reinvent myself in a space where I was in a protective mode, full-on protective mode. So people didn't see me laugh or hear me joke around, and they didn't know that I did any differently. Right. But so the 8 years passed. So the 8 years passed, I became really good at working. I became a workaholic because my mother wouldn't have wanted me to become an alcoholic.
So you had to put it somewhere. And I'm
born and raised in the South Bronx, and I can't do drugs. My father would kill me, despite the fact that he had been dead for a while at that point. Right. So I just went to, some kind of ism, some kind of aholic that that was rewarding for my daughter because I needed to make sure I provided for her. And that meant, if I got out of work at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because I had all this work, who cared? Who cared? Right? And I write in the story, like, my marriage suffered, my friendship suffered, because it was like, whatever.
I don't care about anything.
I'm like, oh, you upset about, I came home at 2 o'clock in the morning, but we took vacation last week, so why are you upset? Right? I just became low-grade bitter person. It's terrible. As I look back. It's just like, I spent 8 years holding myself accountable and running from grief. Because it was easier to run from grief than it was to face the fact that she was not going to be there, right? And in Puerto Rico, the area code for the island of Puerto Rico 787, and then each town has the first 3 numbers.
Okay.
So for months and months and months, 787, 862, and I, dialed the extension of one of my aunts, but I would call my mother instead by mistake and catch myself calling my mother. And one of my aunts, the one who told me she had passed, had this song on as her, like, when you called her, this song came on, and it was like, we've laughed so much, can't wait to see you again. And it's a friendship song. It's really like a song written for like people who are going to like their college reunion. But one day I call her sobbing. I'm like, you need to take that song off. Like, I can't take calling you anymore. Whatever. 8 years I became an aholic.
Yeah. Now you said during those 8 years, because a lot of people would describe it as you grieved for 8 years. But you very specifically said you ran from grief for 8 years. Yeah. What's the difference? You know what I mean? Like, as you describe that difference.
You allow yourself to cry. Grieving, what did they say? Grief is love unshared.
Yeah. I've heard that.
That's love unshared. I straight up withheld love.
Oh, wow.
From everybody.
Including yourself.
Well, yeah. Yeah. So what's the difference is, in one, you're willing to sit around the table with your family and laugh about the things that abuela said. In the other one, you don't even go near that table.
Wow.
That's all right. Y'all can do it by yourselves. I didn't go to Puerto Rico. I literally stopped. I used to go to Puerto Rico 3 times a year.
And then that was that.
There's no reason for me to go there. Right. Mind you, my aunt's there. I have a sibling there. No necesidad. No need.
So, what you're having these exchanges, whether it's friends, it's your husband. What made you then say, "Oh wait"? Was it, I'm a workaholic? Or what was the sort of like moment? Or was there a moment? Was it gradual? Was it just that year 7 was better than year 6 and year 8 was, how did this
I got an executive coach.
That is what made the turn. Okay.
I got an executive coach, and I remember being at work and getting up from my desk and facing out into an empty space because she said, would your mother want you to be so miserable? And it was so brutal, raw, and right on. Like, no one had ever said it that way to me. And she said it, and, I ugly cry. I get all puffy, mocos run down my face. Like, it was like, and I realized, oh my God. Oh my God. She's like, is this, and she didn't wait for the answer. She's like, do you want that for Nadia? Nadia's my daughter. And it was like, oh.
Yeah, right. I sure don't.
Worst thing is, last question she asked, and have you been there for your daughter in honor of your mother? I was like, oh.
Ouch.
It was an ouch, but it was the most healing ripping of the bandage
Mm-hmm.
I could ever have.
All right, y'all heard it. Grissel Seijo said, I mean, we talking about a published author and a powerful lawyer. And she said, everybody get a coach. So call me Monday. All right.
Yes, coaching is important. Coaching is important.
I a lot of good company. I was about to have a little fun there. But I think that your description of that, there's something powerful about the fact that you say grief being, that love that we don't have a place to place, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was your executive coach leaning on, almost weaponizing the love she knew was in there somewhere to get you to move. I guess, how powerful was that? And what was it like to finally be back to feeling feelings? Because I'm sure it wasn't all like happy days are here again, right? I mean, like you had a lot to deal with at that point. How was that part and the processing of that moving forward?
So the question that she posed to me after she let me cry ugly was, hey, because I had told her about abuela. She said, hey, what did you pick up in your mother's honor? And I hadn't. I had nothing. I had nothing because the day she died, I had nothing. It was like a shutdown. So I remembered that my mother was a keeper of secrets. My mother opened space for people to say they're ugly. And I started, I have on LinkedIn, every weekend I post, and I would post about what it was to be like a Latina from the South Bronx, right? What it was to be the only in the room, what it was to create spaces for people that looked like me, that were professionals, that don't have a space. So I decided I was going to create space. And it has. Over the years, people have said, look, I loved your Sunday post, or it's really impactful, or something you said. But it's funny because it's on LinkedIn, right? I didn't choose any other medium. I chose it in a professional medium where people normally would not put that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I did it because of that. I did it because there's too many of us who are poor, born in the South Bronx, and are the only ones in the room for whatever reason, right? And so I wanted people to know there's a space for you. And I didn't want it to be a TikTok video or Facebook posting. No. Let's get real, because it's so real that it affected my career.
Of course.
Right. And so that's why I chose it there. That's why I continue to do it there. Like every Sunday at noon, I will post something about what it is to be alone or lonely or the only. Because I'm sure I'm not the only one that grieves their mother or their spouse or their child, or, but the thing is, again, people don't like to talk about the ugly. Everybody loves, do a blog about like how to eat the best fruits.
Right.
But
The
you
5
do a
best
blog
slices
about
of pizza.
grief. Right. That's real, right? Because you talk about people's uglies.
Yeah.
And all of us have it.
Yeah. Once you are there, you're picking that piece up, are you reconnecting now with your aunts? Are you going back to Puerto Rico? Is there time that you're specifically spending with your daughter, with Nadia, to sort of reconnect there and see where she is? Like, how did the sort of the coming out of it all, the play out?
It's still a journey.
Yeah.
I think part of it was, so the breakthrough happens in 2019. So my mother died November 8th, 2011. And my mother was a numbers woman, so we buried her 11/11/11. Right.
Really?
We purposely did it. Yeah, we purposely did it at 11. So my sister, we purposely did that. So fast forward, now it's 2019. Around the time of the 8-year mark. And then COVID strikes. Right. So I I went to Puerto Rico. My older sister had like one of those like bookmark birthdays, one of the 10s. That what we call in Spanish the tatatas, like a cuarentata, right? So she had a bookmark birthday, and I went down, and I literally flew down that morning and flew right back out that night.
Whoa.
I got my cousins to agree to bring my aunts. So we flew the 6 remaining aunts up to Miami, and then we flew them up to New York one year. So I worked it so that there was no reason for me to be on the island, right? I did about 2021. So in late 2021, I went home to Puerto Rico, to the town where my mother lived. And I passed by the house she lived, right? I went walking. It's a very small town. And I just stood out there looking at it, and someone was living in there. And I thought, do you know who used to live there? Do you know the soul that lived there? So yeah, I don't go to Puerto Rico often still.
Yeah.
It's been a hot minute since my mom passed.
Yeah.
And I love my aunts and I love my cousins, but there's no reason for me to go there anymore. Right? There's just...
It's not where you are.
I love that island, and I love the palm trees and the sun, and one of my favorite videos that my husband has is when we took Nadia the first time to the beach was with my mom.
Wow. Are you able to watch it?
Yes.
That's awesome.
And the craziness is that at some point my mother was alive when we took her. And when Nadia was first born, we took her when Nadia was 2 months. Mommy didn't have cancer, or maybe she did, but we didn't know it. Right. So when she saw the video, because my husband really just a beautiful job of it, she said, "When I die, this is what you should show." And I never once thought, okay, a year and a half later, I would be showing it.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I guess, I'm struck by, but you had that, that moment, what a powerful moment. Even that in real time, she was able to look at that and go, okay, that's, there it is. That's beautiful. I guess I'd ask one more question, and there's been amazing conversation. I just seriously just thank you for opening up the way you have. And that moment you described, that this is what I want you to show, right? When for your mom to say when she passes away. I found, and this might be just me, but my mom passed in March and my kids were born in May. I mean, when I say she just missed them. And she was here, she knew they were on the way, she was it was like, and for me, I found myself looking down into the cribs. We had twins. Found myself looking down and going, what have I done? Yeah. Oh my God. Like, the best outcome here is you're going to feel like this. That's the best this is going to go.
Correct.
And I really found myself apologizing, spiritually so, to these infants, because I was like, oh my goodness, I don't want anybody to feel this ever, Yeah. I say that because I wonder if you were able to say to Nadia, you don't need to spend the 8 years I spent. What would be your message about carrying on from there? At that, when she needs to go through that process?
That's a really good question. Indulge me as I tell the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
My mother died from lung cancer. She was a smoker, right? when I graduated from law school, I was the third female in my household to graduate from law school. There's only 4 of us in the household. And my brother was a nuclear engineer. Literally, he was an engineer for the United States Navy.
Wow.
But the neighbor comes and says, Doña Miña. My mother's name was Herminia. Doña Miña used to be so proud because the girls.
Right? Wow. I mean, yeah, seriously.
So my mother's smoking. You know what, Pepe? I don't care what the title is, what they do. I care that they be good women's, right? Good women's. That they remember that one over there, my father. Busted his neck in a factory so they could come. And I take care that they be good Christian. Very simple, right? Be good. Remember your roots. Know that nothing about you makes you better than anybody else. So what I've told Nadia is, if I am half the mother my mother was, you will be safe forever. If I'm half the woman my mother was, you will know your power. But if I am the woman my mother was, you will always know that I won't leave you alone. It took a long time for me to come to terms with the fact that physical body is gone, but her presence in life is here. And I will say even one crazier thing. When I went to Columbia as an undergrad. I went because I was going to be an award-winning physicist. I was going to be a Nobel Prize winner.
Is that right?
Yes, because there's a concept in physics called black matter, right? Black matter is this unknown energy that flows through the world that is greater than physical matter. And in my mind, because I'm born and raised Christian and I'm Puerto Rican, that's souls. And I was going to figure out a way to prove that this theory of black matter was actually not just a theory. Now, I couldn't do the calculus for it, but I have always been fascinated by the idea that I won't see it in my lifetime, but there's going to be some kick-ass Latina who's going to figure out how to measure black matter. And that's what I believe. So I believe that where spirit lives in me, through me, around me. And what I want Nadia to do is remember, she's a good person. We've struggled to make her life better. And she is better. Not of anybody else, just better. Right?
Wow.
That's the goal.
Well, listen, Grissel, I have a little bit of a bone to pick with you because, see, here's the thing. I have people on, sometimes they cry. But I don't often have to keep myself from crying. I don't like you really you share a beautiful story and some beautiful insights, and I really appreciate the way you've opened up and shared parts of that the story of you and your mom and Nadia and the family, parts that weren't even there for the rest of the public. We got some insights and some moments, so I'll remember that. I'll remember that for a while. That there'll be good women's. Remember that, and be good
women's. The guy inside busted his neck. Be a good Christian.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much, and I just can't wait to see what you decide to write next or do next. And I will definitely be checking out LinkedIn to see your Sunday post. And please, y'all, I'm telling you, this essay is more than worth it. I'm going to put the information in and you can get it on your Kindle. And that's how we'll roll. But yeah, just fantastic.
And proceeds for the book actually go to literacy programs.
Oh, wow.
Children's literacy programs, yeah.
I mean, come on, y'all. All the more now you got no excuse.
Yeah,
Now you
I
got
see
no excuse.
nothing. I see nothing, and I don't want to. Right? It's
Yeah.
in her name that that I sat down and wrote it.
It comes through. It's truly a powerful essay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You take care.
Amen. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You know what time it is. It's time to walk the line. Grissel Seijo, her story, the story she wrote, the story she shared here with us. I mean, just incredibly powerful, moving. I found it to be incredibly moving. And one of the things that I will take from the story is this idea of take something with you from that departed person that you'll be able to carry on. And it might be a literal thing as it was in one story, but it could also be a figurative thing, a character thing, a way of being, a way of seeing the world, a way of relating to other human beings. And I just want to encourage everyone, certainly everyone who has experienced a loss of someone you care about one way or another, that you really give some thought to what you might take and carry forward with you. So I'll share that I lost my cousin a while back, and I've talked about that, and I've shared a piece about that here with you, the UnstuckAF audience. And there was something about him that was just incredibly cool. And he would say, "Don't worry about me. I cool. I cool. I cool. I cool. I cool." He was always cool, even when things weren't great for him or easy for him. Even when he got he had his, first issue with his heart, and, that had to be scary. He was always cool. I tend not to be cool. I've, over the course of my life, tended to run high. But I'm really working on being cool. So I'm carrying forward. I cool, man. What do you carry forward? What do you carry forward? Let the light that you're missing shine through you. All right, that's your walk the line. So until the next time, you can check us out on our online community, wealignp.com. You can check out @AlignP on Instagram. You can check out @AlignP on TikTok. You can find us on Facebook, Align Performance, or you can come look for me, Orlando Bishop, Coach Orlando. And until the next time, we gon' get unstuck. We gon' be unstuck. We gon' live unstuck. Unstuck as fuck. Now, let's walk the line.